Legislature is back in session. At this time, I'll recognize Senator Jesse Guåhan for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, panel. Thank you again for being here. Day number 2. I got a few questions, and I'll just whoever from the administration is in the capacity to answer the questions that I ask, please do so. I assume at this point that it'll be probably Lester, but again, whoever's in that capacity to do so, go ahead and do that. So, Mr. Chairman, it's really unfortunate that we are here today talking about a budget that we cannot even get an audit done on time. And, it's really pointless paying for these audits, but we don't have the use for them during these discussions. So my question basically is to the administration, what can the administration or this legislature, what can we do to make sure that these audits are done in time? A lot of questions that were asked earlier, and I'm sure questions that will be asked again later on, and to days to come, are based on 23. What can we do?
Senator, there's nothing I would like more than getting an audit done. My staff has been doing an audit for the last 3 years non-stop. Reasons for it are lack of resources within the government, lack of resources at the auditors, and a very much more complex audit occasioned by the federal money that we've had. In addition, this year, there's been the further complication of the difficulties experienced by the Department of Education, which is part of the general fund, and we can't complete the audit of the general fund without getting the audit of GDOE done first. What can we do to make it? Certainly, I could do with more resources. I can't influence the auditors. They have to provide their own resources. But I could certainly use more accountants if I can get trained and qualified accountants. But that has to go out throughout the whole government, because there are 2 units that still haven't reported, 2 component units that haven't reported, GMH and Guåhan. And again, that's going to hold up the completion of the audit until we get those units in. We sent our trial balance to the auditors on April 30th. We've had some questions back from them, which we're dealing with as they arise. But that's really the reason that I try and de-emphasize the audit and emphasize financial reporting, which we can do and do on a more timely basis.
And so that being said, okay, so when you say resources, are you talking cash resources, manpower? You said, because earlier you said also the expertise, right? And,
yes.
The I guess competitive nature in which maybe the private sector or other maybe federal government that maybe is offering more money. Is that basically?
Well, I've actually been advised on Monday, just on Monday, that DOI has awarded us a grant of $250,000 to help get the single audit done on time. But I still have to go and find those resources and trained accountants. Fewer accountants are being trained by UOG. Not really sure of the reason for that. We are going to set up a intern training program in an attempt to trap people while they're young, but get them interested in government accounting, which is fairly complex. And I certainly, want to use that money as quickly as I can, but I have to go out and find those resources. The auditors recruit a lot of their accountants for the Philippines, but we can't employ foreign nationals, so we can't do that.
So basically, whatever legislature sets by statute and when they have to be turned in, we can anticipate that this is going to be an ongoing problem until those resources that you're talking about are tackled and
Yes,
succumbed,
I mean,
right?
we certainly want to make sure that it doesn't fall behind, and we are trying to catch up. But to do 2 audits simultaneously is kind of really difficult. And especially if you're waiting for numbers from another unit that will actually impact the report that you're trying to put together.
Okay. Thank you for that. My line of questioning is actually a little different from some of that were asked earlier. The administration continues to request for more funding for certain programs, yet, of course, some of the audit findings show repeat deficiencies year after year. What has the administration actually implemented from prior audit recommendations?
For the benefit of Mr. Byrne and myself, sir, could you cite specific examples?
I'm sorry?
Could you cite specific examples?
Of deficiencies?
Yes, not just deficiencies, but what deficiencies, what department?
Well, I mean, deficiencies in reporting, like in tax collections and things like that? They use taxes in reporting?
That was actually an OPA audit, not an outside audit. But I think I would defer to my colleague from DRT to respond to that.
Senator, as mentioned before in previous hearings, one of the branches, if you will, where there have been recommendations by the OPA concern the BPT area. And that is, unfortunately, one of the branches where we historically have been understaffed. I did mention earlier that we currently only have 2 full-time employees at BPT, and their work is, or they are helped by other full-time employees from elsewhere in the agencies. That particular branch, in addition to their normal responsibilities, it's also the branch that is concerned with the bonded warehouse inventory checks. And so in addition to that, they have other things. I do know that Vice Speaker Atta did put an inquiry in at the last, I believe it was at the SES, with regard to where we were on use tax. So we do have personnel working overtime to try to address that issue. And what we didn't want, and I had informed the Vice Speaker that there was simply no way that we could just get to that figure immediately. And that's because we're dealing with boxes of papers that come over from customs, and we want to ensure that the reconciliation is as close to accurate as possible. We didn't want to, have duplicate assessments, and so forth. And so it is a very tedious process, and our staff is working on that right now. So there are some other things, other recommendations, if you will, that the Public Auditor's Office has done, has indicated, and we do our best to work with those recommendations, given the situation of manpower and programming and so forth, and just a simple change in process.
Okay. My understanding is that we have appropriated money for tax collectors. Is there a reason why we're not hiring people to collect taxes? And are there GG1s caught up at either DOA or BBMR? Where's it caught up at?
So with regard to BPT in particular, there has not been an interest in that branch. As I mentioned, historically, they've been understaffed, and there's been a high rate, turnover rate, if you will. So with regard to collection, that's different from BPT. BPT, it's out, in the collection area, you're talking about revenue officers. And so while we are staffed better in some respects as compared to BPT, the BPT branch. We're certainly nowhere near where we need to be. We, and thanks in part to DOA, we've actually seen an improvement with regard to the processing of GG1s. But as with the rest of the nation, we do struggle with recruitment and also with retention.
Do you need the authority to make that position more attractive, like maybe above step hiring? And if so, how much money do you think you're losing because we're not getting this information, or?
I couldn't give that figure to you at this moment, but you know, I don't. So could we use some assistance with regard to perhaps doing another study on those positions? Sure. You know, we could. I mean, I think compared to some of the other branches, and perhaps even across different agencies, you know, certainly it is not as attractive as some of the positions that are out there.
No, I understand that, but I mean, this is position. We again, like I said, if we make it a little more attractive than what it is right now, maybe above step hiring, give you guys the authority to do so, because you know, again, you're pointing out the situation where you're understaffed, and how can we staff it? We staff it by, again, having it a little more attractive. You know, maybe it's not the most attractive division in Rev and Tax, but we can make it attractive.
So while we have that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but while we have that option, you know, of course, someone has to apply for it, right? And then we can work on the above step, you know, process. But, you know, we are...
Do you need the authority to make it happen? And that's what I'm saying. We're here. We're here, and we know, you know, we have some challenges. We know there's leakage up there, and we want to give you the authority, again, the mechanism to be able to capture these things that we're not capturing. So tell us what you need. Okay. Is it giving you the authority to do so? Is it giving you authority to make it more attractive? What do you need from us to be able to capture what we, you know? Okay.
Well,
some of the questions that we're asking here.
I will tell you one thing that is frustrating for the staff. Whenever there is draft legislation, it usually concerns BPT. And I will tell you that the staff, you know, they have to pivot, right? Mm-hmm. You introduce legislation, it becomes law, we have to comply with it. And so they're forced to have to become familiar with what has become law. And then no sooner do they become familiar with that than something else is introduced. And so, you know, I think part of the other thing too would certainly be an automation of certain processes, right? And that's, you know, we were hoping to have a different, maybe perhaps a more smooth process between us and, for example, Customs. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I understand that Customs is trying to get their system automated. The best we can do at this point in time is to have a shared document. And so we've been trying to work with that, but again, understanding that we are short-staffed in that particular branch. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there are different factors.
Yeah. And ma'am, the reason why I'm asking this, okay, because I've got legislation I'm working on to give you guys a new home, okay? And that new home that we're looking at to do is give you the latest to be able to capture these things. So it'd be easier for us here to work and to get, you know, the up-to-date information that is needed by this body to make the best decision that we can. So again, what is needed from us, that we can help you out. And, you know, I mean, I understand that legislation comes on, and, you know, and they get used to a certain legislation, but they have to adapt to this, and then something else comes up. That's the nature of work, you know? I mean, kids do that every day in school, right? I mean, they're taught this, and then, you know, next grade level, they're, you know, that's work, right? That's why it's work, because you have to adjust to the things that come, and when the legislature again is, you know, is in session, be prepared, because laws may change. There's going to be laws introduced. So that's the nature of government.
Absolutely, but I also would like to repeat what I've said in other hearings, and that's, please, in addition to any fiscal impact that you ask of us, what is the draft legislation's potential fiscal impact, please come and talk to us, even before a hearing. Please come and talk to us, and we'll run over the feasibility of such a proposal. We welcome you to come to the agency, and we can talk about some of the things. The other thing too would be, as I mentioned, an automation of such processes, but certainly the interfacing with some of the agencies that we deal with would be ideal.
Now, is that in the works to be able to do that? That we can interface, we can talk to each other?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, what we're waiting for, or we're hoping for, is that Customs will actually get a system, and wherein we would be able to avail of the information in real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have oversight of Customs, so I know that's going to be, we're working on getting that up and going. We were criticized because they say we've been criticized saying that we're really wanting to tax people, and really what we're doing is we're looking at the leakage that's out there to capture that, given the mechanism, again, to revenue tax and Customs as well, and what is not being brought forth and accounted for. That being said, but let me go to the BPT, since you brought it up. But it's not really in your entity, this line of question. But there's no secret that the majority of the folks that are here in this 38th Guam Legislature campaigned on the fact to roll back the BPT. And on the day that we got sworn in, we said we were going to roll back the BPT, and I, for one, knows that, because on the 37th Guam Legislature, one of my first bills that I introduced was the rollback and BPT. That being said, it was anticipated that this BPT will be rolled back with this Republican majority. That being done, what has the administration done to cut down on expenses, knowing that we were going to do it? This is the new majority. We were going to roll back the BPT. What has the administration done, again, to cut back on expenses? Knowing that, and again, it wasn't my first bill, but it was Senator Guåhan's bill. Knowing that, what was done to cut back on expenses?
Thank you, Senator Lujan. Normally, when we see a bill introduced that has multiple sponsors to it, it catches our attention. Bill 11 only had Senator Guåhan's name on it. And it didn't look like it had, quote unquote, momentum. In discussions leading up to today, we kind of got mixed signals as to what the BPT was going to be pegged at. One of the messages that we got was not this year, but certainly it'll be a subject for discussion in fiscal 2027. So that, combined with the testimony from business owners who came out and when pointedly asked if they were going to roll back their prices, and they said no, okay, well, what's the benefit? Where is it that we're going with this? Because and I have been asking this body to look at an internet sales tax. I had been asking this body to look at replacing any BPT that was rolled back with another revenue source that, we're currently the only U.S. jurisdiction that doesn't impose an internet sales tax. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's really a decision of, this legislature representing the desires of the people. But it is a revenue source that we could tap, but there just doesn't seem to be a willingness to do that. And if we had that internet sales tax as another revenue source, and it showed a great, potential. I don't think anybody would argue with rolling back a commensurate portion of the BPT, but we don't even have that. So it's almost like we know what you said. We saw the reactions from the public hearing. Didn't seem overwhelming. And what it is that the bill here has targeted, for lack of a better word, doesn't really, impact operations. So there's only the BPT and the withholding tax as a revenue source for the general fund that we have issues with. But the allocations of the revenues for the majority of what it is that the bill contains for operations of the government of Guam are there. It's at the sake of reducing the rainy day fund and reducing the provision for income tax refunds. So again, we're looking at what was done, and as you mentioned, I'll answer your question. I'm sorry for the foundation laying, but it further comforted us, for lack of a better word, that the operations of the government of Guam in the substitute bill are not adversely affected. They did a good job of being able to take into account existing requirements for operations, and it's still a work in progress to get the information from Stephanie to give you a better idea of where the federal cuts are. Just last night, I got something from BSP that I shared with the chairman and with Stephanie on the coastal zone management and the whatever that other one is, the four acronym word. But there are things that we know, like PBS, and other things that we've tried to relay on a timely basis to be able to have the legislature look at being able to backstop the funding that's not coming from the federal government. So while it was maybe something that we could have seen coming, I don't think we actually knew what the S bill was going to contain until last week Wednesday, when the chairman came, met with the governor, and basically said, here's the revenues. And we didn't get the bill till 4:30 on Friday, like everybody else, but we didn't see what the revenues were going to be until not even a week ago. So there wasn't, it wasn't like Chicken Little was running up and down,
Well, now that you have, you said there wasn't a momentum basically, for the BPT rollback, but obviously there is in this House now. There's momentum, and we got the substitute bill with a rollback, with the anticipation of it being a full percentage probably next fiscal year. But that being said, the reason why I was asking this, Lester, is that we've heard from the administration, to talk about revenue shortfalls, but we haven't seen a comprehensive spending reduction plan from the executive branch. Would that be coming out soon? Based on now that that the BPT has got momentum, and that now we know that it's serious, that there is going to be a rollback. Is there a expenditure reduction plan?
So when the governor submits her executive budget request January 31st, it's a proposal, it's a start of a discussion. The BPT was at 5%. So we got something Wednesday. Okay, it looks like we're not putting money in the rainy day fund. It looks like we're not going to have as much money in the provision for income tax refunds. There's not going to be as much money for GMH, and there's no money for the DOC modernization plan, just to highlight those areas. The budget for the operations of the government of Guam is the primary responsibility of this body. If this body passes a bill that becomes law, that has a different set of priorities, we will have to adapt. The last time that we provided the legislature a revised spending plan was in 2018, after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act forced a fiscal realignment plan to be produced, which we did, and we did submit that to the legislature, and that fiscal realignment plan is what brought the BPT from 4% to 5%. So it's been the law of the land since 2018. So again, the reaction is on us. The initiative, for all intents and purposes, is on you. And if this is what you do, then we're going to have to adjust accordingly.
This thing keeps turning off, yeah. Since the administration taken office, can you provide a dollar amount for all the raises for unclassified employees in the administration?
All unclassified
Yeah,
employees.
since taking office, yeah, can you provide a dollar amount for all the raises for unclassified employees in the administration?
We could. It's not going to be anything that you're going to get tomorrow or anytime this week.
That's fine.
Okay.
Well, we get it, yeah. Likewise, beyond the raises, how many new unclassified positions have been created since the start of this administration? And what is the total incurring costs to the taxpayers?
We'll get that to you at the same time.
Thank you. Likewise, on follow-up, I'm almost out of time, is that has the administration conducted any review to determine if certain unclassified positions could be converted to classified positions again? So that would be
The answer is yes, we're constantly looking at it.
okay.
Whenever I get a request for a recruitment in an unclassified position, I generally point out...
And you're
that
converting from the
not
unclass
converting, we generally point out there is already a list
Yeah.
for a classified position.
Because yeah, because I mean, when you're converting somebody from unclass to a class, they normally, I mean, the expense is a little lower, right? I mean, it cuts, I mean, to the government Guam?
No, it's the same pay scale. It's just, in my view, it's
More secure.
beneficial to have
It's a more secure position.
unclassified employees because I consider them to be lifetime civil servants, even if they don't actually last a lifetime in the civil service. I want the civil service to at least be in the position to offer them a career.
Okay. Can you also provide us with a list of sole source contracts issued the last fiscal year, along with justification for bypassing competitive procurement?
Senator, I think that's on the website, but we'll certainly give you the pointers to the website.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Senator Lujan. Senator Guåhan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the panel for coming here yesterday and today to address us and to answer some questions. I think, just some of the things that, were running through my head over the last couple of days as the presentation was done, and then my other colleagues here were asking their questions. Just a couple of things in regards to, revenue, obviously, and then, of course, the Simon Sanchez thing, because, the confusion, at least, of course, my wife and a lot of her family and close friends are educators and, of course, very interested in the sentiment that we're not going to fund Simon Sanchez. But just to kind of understand procedurally how things are done, if we didn't approve this funding right now, and anybody on the panel can answer this, will it slow down the process of rebuilding Simon Sanchez if we have no dedicated funding in this bill?
Thank you for that, Senator. I conferred with some folks, the governor amongst them, during lunchtime, and the attributes, the benefits of getting the appropriation this year to augment the authorized funding, as I mentioned earlier, the benefits are you would take the funding, mitigate either the capitalized interest for making more money available for construction, or just straight to enhance construction. I think the analogy I used earlier was we'd be getting a Corolla, not a Lexus. That might not be the best analogy, but I think you guys understand what I mean. We are of the firm revised, maybe not revised, but opinion that we need to take both of the existing authorization and the call that, quite honestly, I've been making for some time for inclusion of the funding in this upcoming fiscal year budget to be able to provide the best campus for the Sharks. So the general fund transfer, it's a maybe if, and Mr. Guerrero, having served at BBMR for many years, he attested to the fact that there wouldn't even be the opportunity to use the governor's transfer authority until around this time next year. And remember, the transfer authority, when you look at the first part, it's executive branch agencies to executive branch agencies. The second part allows for, with a notwithstanding clause, to go outside of the circle and benefit, I'm sorry, it was 5 different areas. That's as we said earlier, it's a tall order. Just to be able to ensure the best outcome from the work that we've been doing for Simon Sanchez, Senator Guåhan, we would really like very much to have the cash appropriation to augment the existing authorization that we have so that we can give the Sharks what they've been waiting for all these years. That's the position that we would like to put forth unequivocally now before the body. Thank you for that.
But do you think it'll slow down the process if it's not in this bill when we pass it? I mean, I get what you're saying, but because again, like my wife is, well, is everything going to stop, or is like the bidding and everything that GDOE has done is it going to stop the process? Because that's the number one question.
Okay, so
I get what you're saying in regards to like it would be a better situation when that time comes, but with what is being proposed, would it slow the process?
Yes,
Or,
it would, because it's the administration's responsibility to take the authorities that are given and put them into action. If the conditions, for lack of a better word, aren't ripe for us to go, we don't have that additional funding to offset the construction costs or the capitalized interest costs, then it really isn't the best way to go and try to get funding for something. Because remember, we have to certify the funds available when we issue the construction contract. And it's like, okay, do you just like take the quick and easy way out and build a school that doesn't have, and you should know that I think it was a $10 million authorization for the design. That design is, I think what people are expecting. And that design, if we come back and it looks something like a shoebox, like what it is that's up there right now, people are going to ask us, well, what the heck happened? Because they're expecting the TRMA design. And anything less than that, sir, I mean, I'm sure your wife will tell you it's like a bait and switch kind of thing. And I don't think anybody wants, to be, associated with something that is far less than anticipated when we have the resources to do it. I understand the chairman's hesitancy to take excess revenues without an audit, and that I applaud him for using the 23 excess revenues because there is an audit to substantiate that. That's prudent fiscal policy. But prior to him having that firm position, the body was appropriating money for power credits and God knows what. We could have built Simon Sanchez with cash, with all the money we spent for the power credits. But, it is what it is. It's, it's behind us now. So moving forward, we'd really like to see that cash appropriation augment the authorization. And then we can go like, full force into getting it done. And if we have that, the first phase is demolishing the existing campus. You know, once we've got somebody on board and, you know, we're in negotiations, one of the first things that you're going to see is that school come down. And I think everybody's going to be happy to see that. You know, we've got some design work that needs to get done, but simultaneously there's going to be a lot of activity up there. And I think everybody wants to see that and be a part of it. So.
Thank you. OFB, I just have one question in regards to, I lost my train of thought here. But, you know, I know the budget that has been described as maybe a big, beautiful disaster. And, you know, I think, you know, or not necessarily a question, but a statement just at the beginning, you know, in regards to your passionate statement about standing behind your projections and your numbers. But I think, you know, was there, you know, in regards to priorities, when you look at, you know, new guy question, you know, when we talk about the budget proposed or the substitute version today versus budget that was passed last year, I mean, you know, is it, you know, were all priorities historically, I mean, are we covering, like previous budgets, covering a lot of the priorities? Would you say that just based on what you've at least put before us with the work of obviously Senator Dueñas and his office, are you confident that you've practiced the same prudence in regards to the budget and projections?
Senator, what I would say at this point is that whatever we appropriated to the departments within the budget bill is sufficient enough to cover their basic costs. Basic costs, and when I talk about basic costs, we normally talk about fixed costs with these agencies as they move forward every fiscal year. And of course, that's personnel, some of your contractual, utilities, and anything else that they incur on an annual basis. Those expenses don't normally, they grow, but you know, a 2, 3, 4, 5% growth, you can consider average. Anything above that, it becomes kind of like, you know, questionable as to why the growth rate is so high. But for the most part, I think what I'm proposing within the budget bill would be sufficient enough to cover their basic needs.
Thank you. And then one more question in regards, sorry, back to the Simon Sanchez. Should the bill, you know, be, you know, should there be ready, or a bill come for Simon Sanchez? You know, again, for the record, how would, you know, you propose that we pay for Simon Sanchez, considering there's nothing in the budget bill right now?
Senator, what I could say at this point is that at least whatever provisions we put within the budget bill would allow basically the funding for the construction of the school to at least start, the initial part to start. If there's anything else that is needed to get that, to jumpstart that, then so be it. But I think what's within the bill right now is sufficient enough to do that. We're talking about a potential $100-some million facility. We are in no position to fund all of that right now. Are we in a position to obligate it? No. That's why they need to do their conscientious decision to go out and secure this funding, which is going to take them anywhere from, I believe the thing is 30 years out. So what will happen is that once they secure that, it will be the obligation, I guess, of the government to find the annual cost to pay for that bond going forward. But until such then, we don't know what it is. And it's been in the books for how many years? And it's just a matter of getting it jump-started, getting it going, that will start the ball rolling to finite some of these numbers, to find out exactly what it is it's going to cost this government on an annual basis to accomplish that. But right now, again, these numbers are just being thrown around. You know, and I'm just saying I'm willing to help to secure whatever's needed to get it going. But the authority has been there for a couple of years. The funding issue, it's been addressed. Whether or not it's an avenue they want to take to secure it, that's not for me to decide right now.
So, you know, I guess my question though, to follow up with that is, so there's been precedent then to wait for the appropriate funding, or to do the, you know, appropriate the funding until the terms of the agreement have been finalized. So, for example, UOG, was that funded even before the terms were agreed on in regards to how much they needed to fund the lease back for UOG? Or was there a finalized number before that? I guess my question is, can we appropriate without a finalized agreement? A question to anybody on the panel.
So the appropriation for Simon Sanchez has a not to exceed annual limit of 16.3 million. The first 2 years of capitalized interest under the financing structure we have, it's like 7, then million and 9, but that's using borrowed money. You know, that's capitalized interest, right? It just so happens to be right around that $16 million number. So if we could take that out and have the cash, then you could take that money and build a better school. When we came before the body a few years ago, we gave a presentation that showed the base bid for the school at $136 million. There was a bunch of add-ons after that, and there was FF&E on the bottom. As you know, sir, DOE said they would take care of the FF&E with the ARP money. You know that that's no longer the case. So we had to put the FF&E into the Simon Sanchez construction. So we are still, we're south of that 136 number, but that 136 number, again, is old. So the plea to you guys is to help us get the Shark Tank, not an aquarium.
Anything, Steve? No? All right, that's it for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
This is Senator Guåhan. Senator Sabrina Salas-Mantanani, you recognize.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on a couple of questions from my colleagues, specifically for the Department of Revenue and Taxation regarding tax leakages. I'm not sure, but I don't think I heard an amount, because these tax leakages, this issue has actually been going on with the government for years.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you're talking about use tax in particular, but for example, tobacco.
Right.
So we have the bonded warehouse process in place, and then I forget which body it was that you know, the stamps were implemented, or the law was enacted because of the fact that there was concern about leakage. They just felt that that particular process was not sufficient.
But do you have a dollar figure?
I don't have a dollar figure for you. I mean, you know, people
Not
can
an
say,
estimate?
you can say that there's leakage, but on our side, there's probably, you know, I mean, it would be irresponsible for me, Senator, to give you an amount, and we haven't even kind of gone through the process, for example, with regard to use tax. We're trying to reconcile the paperwork that has come in from customs, and so I don't have that amount. Vice Speaker did say at the SCS that, you know, any leakage was simply that, was leakage. And, you know, I agree with him. And that is something that we are, you know, trying to assess. You know, at the same time, too, we've been trying to, and although we have not been able to meet it in a timely fashion, but we've been trying to implement some of the recommendations from the OPA. And, you know,
When did those recommendations come down? Just curious.
Some of those recommendations hail back to as late or far back as 2016. And so
we've been waiting
has
since
us-
2016 for recommendations by the OPA to be implemented to address tax leakages? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, it's difficult, and I think it's unfair, you know, to make that, you know, assertion.
You just said it. I'm just repeating what
No,
you're saying.
all I'm, okay, so let me back up here. He has followed up on some recommendations that he's written about since 2016. And to be fair, you know, our tax enforcement, Carolyn is with our tax enforcement division. You know, to be fair, you know, we have, and I've mentioned this before, that we are short-staffed with certain things, right? Certain branches, to include the examination branch. Now, there has been some assertion that, hey, why aren't you, you know, able to get all these people to file, you know, returns, and therefore the insinuation is such that people are not paying their fair share. But we mirror the IRS, and so basically it goes by an honor system, right? We can't go out there and force people to file, returns, and so forth. So, but back to the public auditor's recommendations, some of the staff have actually even confided in me that, if it's more than a recommendation, then it's really a micromanaging of our agency. So recommendations, we can take it into consideration, we can try to implement it, but if we are short on resources, whether it's money, whether it's human resources, and so forth, we are trying to do our best. And I invite you, and as well as any of the other senators, please come by, talk to us, and we'll go over processes. And I will be fair. We will be fair. If you think that we are lacking in certain areas, or we certainly could do a better job, so be it. But let's have a discussion. Sometimes it's difficult for us to come to these hearings, and we only have a limited amount of time, and we're not able to properly explain. So, please contact my office. We'll be happy to get you guys in there and so forth.
And I'll probably take you up on that invitation.
Sure.
But I think you knew that you were coming here, and we were going to be asking about numbers. Tax leakages is a very important issue because we're trying to find money for the government. And if revenue that we otherwise could be collecting, we're not, obviously, you should be prepared to answer a question about tax leakage. Like, how much money are we talking?
But I think it's unfair when I've already said at the beginning of my remarks that we are currently working on, for example, use tax. We have people working overtime for that. So it is difficult to try to manage the day-to-day responsibilities. And so, therefore, that's why we've authorized overtime. So I don't know what to tell you. I do not want to be irresponsible and give you a figure and then have that, go viral, and so forth. But we can have a discussion.
There's these documents that are complaining from let's see, where is it? From the administration complaining about this budget. Lester, you had mentioned earlier working together, providing budgetary resources. This has been collaborative. Then why all this animosity when we're all working on the same goal from the administration? I mean, using graphics, language, calling the budget a bad, broken budget. I mean, aren't we here to work together? I may be asking questions, from recommendations from 2016, but we're all trying to help our people and provide the best services for them. So, maybe anybody up here would like to answer that question?
Senator, we've been here, what communication sends out, that's not my call, it's not my lane, it is what it is. But, we've been sitting here in front of you while those messages have been dropping, and I haven't had time to read them myself. I'm sure they're not pleasant, but at the same time, it's politics.
We're using government resources to do these social media, bad, broken budget type of messages. But be that as it may. Stephanie, I did have some questions for the Guam State Clearinghouse. Earlier this year, you and we met, and we discussed concerns about these federal impending tax cuts. And so earlier, was yesterday, you mentioned how you've already received word about cuts from PBS. That's $978,000, almost $1 million. All of that $978,000, is that just going to go to salary?
No, ma'am. I believe that goes to programming as well.
Okay. Guam EPA, you said 12.5 million?
That's the number I got yesterday late Friday from the administrator.
And you don't have any information yet on Guam Historic Preservation Trust? You dropped the agency yesterday. Do you have that information today?
The Historic Preservation Officer will be getting me that information. I requested from him, when he told me that was going to be the situation, I requested that he provide me in writing what that information would be. I have not received it yet.
Do you have any other agencies that you can tell us about today?
Yes, I discussed earlier from Bureau of Statistics and Plans, Coastal Zone Management. They will also be out of funds, from what I understand, by December of this year. They will provide me as well with that, the final numbers. What my office is doing right now is communicating directly with everybody who has federal funds and saying, please provide us the most up-to-date information so that we can provide it to the legislature. And so that's what they're doing right now.
Do you think you'll be able to present us that information by Monday or?
I believe so. I believe so.
Okay, or maybe even Friday?
Yeah. My hope is to have it well before Friday, but I will say that if something else comes up in that time period, that we be allowed to amend what we've provided. But we will give an accurate picture of everything we have up until that point.
Is Guam State Clearinghouse, do you have any grants, I guess, in the pipeline?
A number of them, yes.
Right.
So as of actually right now, we have a grant cycle that's open for Department of Interior technical assistance and maintenance assistance grants. Those grants are due on the 15th of this month. And so my team is splitting their time between getting the updated information for what's being cut and helping agencies process their applications that will be uploaded to Department of Interior.
Do you have, I guess, an amount?
The allocation yearly for the TAP and MAP is roughly $3.5 million. And this year, one of the conditions is no project to exceed 400,000. So it caps what can be applied for. But there have been, normally at this point of the fiscal year, we would be already getting notifications of awards under TAP and MAP, but because of changes in policy direction at the federal level, the funding announcement, notice of funding availability that went out in October was held, and it was not reopened until just last month, and giving us 1 month to update those information, the applications to more appropriately align with the conditions that Interior has put in place after a review from DOJ.
You work with various government agencies, right, how many grant writers do we have?
Throughout the government?
Yes.
I don't have an accurate number, but at least every agency has.
Every agency? Because I did speak with the Guam Memorial Hospital. They don't have a
Guam Memorial Hospital has
neither does public health.
Yeah, no, they do have grant writers.
Well, that's not their job. That's what they say, that they're
Right.
not grant writers, but they're doing the grants.
Right. If their program is grant funded, then they are responsible for providing the application for that grant. My office does not necessarily do that. We're supposed to be overseeing and helping to manage.
But you do approve the grant applications, right? So therefore, it would
We don't-
mean that
no.
you know, you don't know how to fill out a grant
We do
application?
not approve the grant applications.
No,
Yeah.
you review them, right? To
If
make
they-
sure all the boxes are checked.
If they provide it to us in time, normally they provide it directly to the grantor. What they are supposed to be doing is giving us a copy before it gets submitted. That does not always happen, okay?
But you do manage the grants, right?
We oversee what each grantee manages their own grant, okay? What we do is oversee those grants, meaning we make sure that they're following what they're supposed to be following. We get a quarterly report from the agencies who have grants to show us where they are in the grant cycle, how much funds have been spent, if there are problems with the applications or getting their money moved, we assist them in trying to rectify those problems. One of the things that we are doing to help better grants management is we are putting together a grants management course, and that RFP just went out on Monday. So that our office received a grant from the Department of Interior for just under $500,000 to do grants management training for the government of Guam. And so that will assist in the better administration of federal funds, and so that we can maximize the spending in that regard.
How many employees do you have at Guam State Clearinghouse?
Guam State Clearinghouse, we are Guam State Clearinghouse and Island-wide Beautification Task Force, so we have 6 employees there, not including myself.
Well, that's good to hear, though, that you have a grant management program grant right?
Yes. This is the second time we're doing it. We did one the first time in conjunction with the Community Defense Liaison Office so that we could ramp up the proficiency of our grants administrators in the different agencies. We were able to see very good results as a result of that. We were able to increase federal spending over the course of time, which would then obviously increase what we call interfund transfers, gets funds from the federal government to the local government after we, draw down on grants. So that has been able to help with the overall finances of the government. And so it is our hope that with this grants management course, getting more people, younger people who are in the program to do grants administration appropriately, that we will be able to be more competitive in competitive grants and expand our formulary grants that we receive.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
I did want to ask a question. I'm sure some of you may have seen the leaked document of Project Rifle. Stephanie, I know you did. So in this draft document, there was a part that said call to action, and it was a letter to the governor in April of 2025 this year, and it was a request to implement ComRight 21 to address financial uncertainty and federal budget cuts. And this actually came to my attention from speaking with the speaker, because he knew that I was very concerned about these impending and possible federal cuts, and that was the main reason why I decided I would write the governor about it. And so for I guess the viewers that are watching, ComRight 21, it is a local law concerning the modernization and right-sizing commission of the government of Guam for the 21st century. Again, ComRight 21. I wrote that, as you are aware, our government is facing growing fiscal uncertainty exacerbated by potential reductions in federal funding and the rising costs of sustaining essential public services. In light of this, it is imperative that we explore proactive, long-term solutions to ensure the resilience, efficiency, and sustainability of our government operations. So I sent that in April. We've got the fiscal team in front of us, and Senator Guåhan kind of asked about it. Has there been anything that the administration has been doing to address this letter, to be proactive?
Thank you for that question, Senator. One of the things that we have been doing, and I know that I said it before, is we have been reaching back to our federal partners to ask them what the impacts will be based on, number one, at the beginning of the term when we started to see all of the executive orders that were coming from the president. I know I shared our tracking sheet with you,
Yes.
which is a multi-page document, which we keep up to date. So we've been monitoring all of that action. We have asked our grantees, our grantee agencies, to reach back to their program officers at the national level to get direction. The response that we have been receiving is our Inspector General needs to get back to us. And so the process is slow on the federal end in terms of really figuring out how the budget impacts will translate down the line. But that has been happening since January of this year. Once the executive orders started coming out, we were very proactive about making sure that we were contacting our program officers. And a lot of times the responses that we're getting is, we don't have the information to give you just yet, because they're still trying to figure out exactly what it means. And unfortunately, it's a frustrating situation, but it is a situation that we're dealing with.
I'm talking about, though, locally in the local government. Has anything been done to right-size, or even conversations about right-sizing the government, cutting, anything like that?
Senator, I made a remark about how well the economy is going. And yes, we do need to take into consideration the adverse impacts of the big, beautiful bill. One of those impacts, and it's probably got an upside to it, is the ability for people to get more of an income tax return for those who file and that can avail to the higher standard deduction. So we need to make provisions to ensure that we have sufficient revenues to be able to take care of those enhanced returns. It's almost kind of counterintuitive because while we're providing information to you guys about BSP and a few other agencies that are going to be affected by some of these DOGE things that have come to light, we're looking at cutting our revenues, and we're not cutting our revenues to be able to do what I think your letter might be seeking. We're cutting our revenues to be able to provide a relief to, taxpayers, the business privileged taxpayers who are in the upper echelon of earning capacities. It doesn't result in anything to the common person. So, on one hand, you're saying we need to prepare, but then there's a bill that takes precious resources not, otherwise intended for offsetting federal government impacts. It's just kind of compounding it. So it's a little bit squishy. So I'm sitting here, I've been sitting here and telling you guys our economy is doing really, really well. The numbers show it, and it's almost like, why would we want to put the brakes on now? We don't have the internet sales tax. I agree with you. We need to take stock of what the federal government's impact's going to be, but we shouldn't be cutting our resources in the face of known federal cuts to our support system here on Guam. And if we are going to cut the BBT another 0.5% next year when some of these other big, beautiful bill things take effect, because they're not all taking effect right now, but they're going to be taking effect like in 27 and 28. So what are we doing? We're cutting our revenues in knowing that we're going to get less federal assistance. It's I don't know how to take into consideration. It's like, something's coming out of one side of the mouth and something's coming out of the other side of the mouth, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Thank you, Lester. The economy is doing really, really well. Very, 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 very well. You could tell that to the businesses that have closed. Guam Chamber of Commerce reported Micronesia Mall, Uggs, Seasoned Sidewalks, Beach and Shrimp, Fantastic Park, Shop for Less at the Dededo Mall, Pyology at Mechechi Plaza, Submarine at Dededo, East West Business Center, Trong's, One Plus Outlet, Boone's Cafe, Circle K, Capricciosa, Royal Orchid, Calvi House Restaurant, Royal Orchid, Una Cultures, Up to Something Good. Let's see, who else is here? New Malau Refillery at Chamorro Village, Linda's Restaurant, Agania Shopping Center, Primo Surf Yogurt Land, Jerry's Kitchen, Horse and Cow Pub and Grill, Couture Hair Boutique, Salon and Vogue, ELP Bookkeeping, Natopia Internet Cafe, Sagua Manyago, IHOP Restaurant, Blooming Grace Picnics and Parties, Full of Hope Baked Goods, relocating.
So,
I was just reading it off.
No,
that's all.
I know, but
But I did have some other questions. This one is for the Department of Administration, and it's related to the Guam Memorial Hospital, because in meetings that I've had, they've been constantly talking about TEFRA, and I think it's been over a year that they've been talking, and the point person has always been the Department of Administration, not necessarily GMH. And I also had a conversation, a video conference with HHS in DC. So if you could, Mr. Byrne, give an update on TEFRA.
I think you're asking about an update to the discharge rate.
Could you say that a little bit louder?
An update to the discharge rate?
Yeah, the reimbursement rate?
Yes, yeah. It is they've been talking about it since I was there 8 years ago. It's a difficult, long process. I've talked to HSS too, and I don't actually think that the old approach to this is going to generate very much more revenue. I think the impetus that I've been trying to work at the moment is improving the Medicaid reimbursement rate. I certainly want to, yes, push the TEFRA rate, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that we should move away from TEFRA altogether, and that requires federal legislation. But that would be my recommendation if...
Right, I remember we met at
if-
Adelup. It was Senator Duenas
right,
and the
if
speaker
left to
regarding
myself.
the movement from TEFRA, which only 100 hospitals in the country are still on versus 3,000 on the system that you're talking about, the
The
prospective
prospective
payment
payment
system.
system,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And
So
that-
where are
that-
you with,
that
have you
rewards-
spoken with Congressman Moylan on this federal legislation? Or
Yes,
proposed?
yeah, actually the other day when he was
Okay,
here.
and what did he say?
Well, it's one of the things that we agreed to return to talk about because it is a complex issue. But I will talk to him. We're going to DC sometime at the beginning of September, and I said I would contact him when we got there to talk about that. But again, you know, that's a long-term process, getting federal legislation changed. But I would also add that I believe, and I've said this to GMH, I believe there are actions they can take to improve their revenues under the existing system. You know, there's for instance, there's an ability to write off Medicare bad debts and get that paid, but they haven't done that. So I have been talking to them about that, but I'm afraid I don't think there's been a whole lot of progress on that. To me, the big gap, you know, the big TEFRA gap, you know, it's a cost-based system. The big TEFRA gap is the difference between what GMH pays physicians and the physician reimbursement rate that is based upon Hawaii and doesn't take account of local conditions on Guam. And that also is something that I think we should look at, because when I looked at both the Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements, that was one of the biggest gaps, was actually not on the discharge rate, but on the professional services rate.
Since we are still on GMH, I did want to ask about this, and it was included in the governor's budget under economic outlook. It was on page 26, the Guam Healthcare Campus leaseback financing. The 36th Guam Legislature passed legislation, now Public Law 3656, that pledges $35 million as an annual lease payment for the new healthcare facility for up to 40 years. The law further states that the first payment in FY2022 will come from the federal reimbursement of the Earned Income Tax Credit, with the following year's payments to come from the general fund. Is this $22 million still there? I mean, not $22 million, the $35 million still there?
It was never deposited.
It was never deposited,
Yeah,
so,
same thing with DOC, because that's like the next one down. So it came from the EITC reimbursement. We don't get a reimbursement for EITC, so we didn't fund either one. So that leads me to something I'd like to be able to say now for DOC. They only have the $5 million that was appropriated in this budget year. The prior one that Mr. Guerrero was speaking about is actually the same legislation as the 21st Century Health facility. It was a EITC reimbursement. We didn't fund that either. So DOC only has the $5 million that the legislature provided to them in this fiscal year, and they've used about $1 million for operations. So just setting the record straight, they don't have 15 million, they only have the 5 from this year.
okay. So this was included, I figured I'd ask since it was included in the governor's budget, so I would have thought that it was there. One of the things that we hear all the time, even working in the media, and it was kind of mentioned earlier, I think, by OFB, that you hear it's the same old issues, same old problems. One thing that we've also heard is the same old answer, that I don't have the authority. So on page 158 of our budget, it says, it's under the transfer authority of Magaʹhågan Guåhan. It says, furthermore, notwithstanding any other provision of law, Magaʹhågan Guåhan is authorized to utilize this transfer authority to fund, 1, operational shortfalls and maintenance for the Guam Department of Education and Guam Memorial Hospital Authority. Having read that, in the event that GMH and GDOE are in a state of emergency and they need funds immediately, does this now give the governor the authority?
So the paragraph above it, it basically states the agencies we can't pull money from. Isn't DOE one of them?
No,
So-
I'm talking about she can take money from other agencies.
The executive branch agencies, people like me, people like Edward, people like DRT. So, like I said earlier, Senator, the Governor's Transfer Authority is supposed to be a tool to take care of executive branch agencies, taking money from executive branch agencies, not reserve departments. So it's like taking money from the people that we have control over. We don't have control over DOE or GMH. So it's like, okay, we're going to take whatever lapses from the executive branch agencies, and there's like 35 of them, to help each other. That's the Governor's Transfer Authority, to help each other. Now we're going outside of that to 5 different areas. DOE and GMH, we don't have any control over their financing. So it's almost like, you know, we don't even know whether or not there's any money to take care of the insular needs that have been part of the General Fund Transfer Authority, and now we're going to go outside of the insular needs to be able to take care of 5 different things.
But does this language give the governor the authority? You're saying no matter what? If there's a state of
There's no-
emergency at the
there's-
hospital or state of emergency at the Guam Department of Education?
If there's a state of emergency, we're going to come down here. We're not going to take monies like in November when we don't know whether or not we're going to have lapses to be able to even get through the fiscal year. That's not fiscally prudent. So the answer to your question is no.
Okay. Thank you so much. I don't have any, well, no, I actually did have one more question. Marie, we were talking about a shortage of staff. So to address the tax leakage at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, how many employees would you need?
That's what I mean. It's us helping.
And what are their positions?
Okay, well, with regard to BPT in particular, there are only 2. Ideally, I would say perhaps another 3 employees in that area. Collection is a little bit better, although the comment has been that we could certainly use double, so perhaps maybe another 15 more in that area.
50?
15.
15.
Yeah, 15. And then, you know, the other place would be the examination branch. And how that works, ma'am, is when people file their returns, if there is, you know, perhaps a need to refer it to examination, that's where they would go. They would take a look at it, see whether or not there is any, there truly is something wrong with the return and what have you. And then, you know, it'll go back, you know, once it's been corrected, you know, or addressed. So we could certainly use more people in those particular areas. It can be argued that we could use more people even in the non-tax branch, which would be driver's license.
I was just talking about in the tax areas to address these tax leakages.
Yeah. Okay, so of course BPT, we could use BPT. We could use exam and certainly more in the collections area.
What's the average salary for these employees?
It actually flows, I'm Carolyn Rivera, by the way. It actually depends on the grade and the step of the employee, anywhere between grades, I believe, K for our tax auditors, starting pay, through LM, probably M. The supervisor for exam is in an O. But then again, I don't memorize the step, and I don't know the starting step pay range for 01, for instance.
No, I mean,
just-
30,000, ballpark figure, 40,000?
30, actually, it depends on also how long they have been there climbing the ladder. Starting, I would say, in the 30s, maybe
How-
early 30s. More senior level are already in the range of 58, maybe 55.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When's the last time they got raises?
The 2014, I guess, a competitive wage program, I think. Oh, the 22%, yeah.
So they weren't
2023
included
April.
anywhere in the latest round of raises, because I think there was 2 rounds of raises that I was reading about.
No, it's a classified group.
Okay, so only
These are
cabinet members
classified groups.
allowed to get raises?
Pardon?
Only cabinet members got raises
In
on
this
that last-
region, I'm not sure. Ask Mr. Burns, maybe?
Well, if they qualify, they would get step raises.
Thank you.
Senator Parkinson, you yielded your time. For the body, I would like to mention that we have Tina Garcia from GIDA. In case you have any questions, she's come to help us out. She has been sworn in by the Sergeant at Arms. So, Senator Perez, you're recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to the panel. So let me start with DRT, and let's talk about BPT for starters. So in the Section 2 of the bill, have you had a chance to take a look at that? It's basically Bill 11-38. And if you can highlight, are there differences in how BPT is implemented with the different businesses? Is there a difference in how BPT is collected from different types of businesses? And if you can explain, yeah.
Under Dave Santos, under...
So my concern mostly is like, for instance, banks.
Yeah.
Is banks treated differently from, let's say, contractors? And how it's, if you can take a look at the bill, Section F of the bill.
Okay, so all the different BPT types listed within lines 1 through 13, I believe all are standardly required to file a return every 20th of the month, if I'm not mistaken. The only difference would be probably calculating their exemptions, the different exemptions. Rental may be different for banking, for instance. Banking, calculating their exemptions is based on net income, for instance, versus rental would be on the first 40,000 in the current year if you made like below 50,000. I mean, it just varies. It's all over the place. But if you're specific to one type, you would go and it'll explain it in detail for that specific tax type. Banking versus rental.
So yeah, what I'm looking for is which businesses are taxed on the gross and which businesses are taxed on the net
Okay.
income.
Let's go to the code sections. 26201. I have it on mine. Let me pull it.
Maybe I can ask Mr. Carlson too, or anybody on the panel that can answer that question, if they can be able to chime in.
I'll defer to DRT, thank you.
Tax at 5%. Sorry. The definitions, the rates. She wants to know the rates, so let's go to the rates, 26. This is?
Yeah, that's not good.
Let's go back.
Sorry, ma'am.
Sorry,
brought a whole bunch of stuff with
let's
us.
get there. There's definitions and then there's rates, right? So you asked about contractors, for instance. So it defines primary contractor shall include every person engaging in business to erect, construct, repair, etc. Then in 26, hold on, 203 gives the rates at 5% currently, and then they are impacted. For contractors specifically, back in the day when it changed in 2018, they were impacted by those, oh, sorry. Okay, let me get used to this. So, the rates in 26202 also vary. So if you're asking how each one is taxed, tax on contractors, there shall be levied, assessed, and collected a tax rate of 5% measured against the gross income of any contractor, provided that there shall be deducted from the gross income of the taxpayer so much thereof as has been included in gross income earned from another taxpayer who is a contractor as defined in 26101B, so on and so forth. 26101B, I believe, is the subcontractors. But generally, file your return at 5% on your gross income, I'm sorry, on your taxable income. So the exemptions is also what may vary. I explained earlier, there's a bunch. Hospitals, infirmaries, there's also specific to banks. Banks is on the net income, I believe, for the exemption. Let me get to that. Thought I highlighted it. Where's banks? Where did it go?
Senator Paris, what we'll do is take a 1-minute recess just so she can find the information that you're requesting. Thank you. 1-minute recess. The committee on the whole is called back to order. Senator Parrish, you had the floor last with your question. I believe she's prepared with her answer for you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so basically, if you could bring clarity about the taxation, whether it's net or gross or what in between.
So it varies. It varies. And my examples were the tax on contractors is at 5% of gross income of any contractor, et cetera, et cetera. That would be specifically primary contractors for contractors tax. Then your question also asked, for instance, about banks. And I did mention it's net income, and then net income is further defined in 26202F, tax on banks, banking institutions, small lenders, and building and loan associations. Upon every person engaging or continuing within Guam in the business of operating any bank, banking institutions, building and loan association, small lending business, or lending institutions, there shall be a tax equivalent to 5% of the net income received from the business, and different from tax on contractors is gross income. So it varies. Professions, upon every person engaging and continuing on in a business in Guam, in the practice of profession, excluding those expounding the religious doctrines of any church, there shall be a tax equivalent to 5% of the gross of such practice. Going back to the bank's net income, for the purposes of this section, net income shall mean the gross income of such taxpayer received from all sources, less the following deductions: salaries or bonuses paid and other compensation from personal services, interest or discount paid, rents paid, ordinary operating expenses, loans, losses, transfers, miscellaneous loss. And that would be a person liable for the payment of taxes levied under this section. This is still in banks. Shall be required to file an annual return and shall not be required to file monthly returns. So that would be a difference. Contractors are required monthly. Professions are required monthly. Banking is not. The rate is still 5%.
Okay, what about, so if you look through that, the BPT, for the most part, it's gross income. But what are the exceptions to that besides the banks?
Exceptions for rates or the
BPT.
exemptions?
Yeah, for BPT. So when we charge BPT on gross income, for the most part, except what besides banks?
Yeah. For instance, there's liquid fuel, different rates. It's based on measurements, different quantities. Tobacco is also different quantities and measurements. It's not based on gross income. Hotel occupancy tax is 11%.
We're talking about BPT. So let's stick to BPT. So what is not gross
they're
income?
Generally, mostly gross income. You want me to go down each line? I can. Rates under 26202. Tax on the business of selling tangible personal property, selling any tangible personal property, engaging within Guam upon every person engaging or continuing within Guam in the business of selling any tangible property, whatsoever, not including, however, bonds or other evidence of indebtedness or stocks. There shall be a tax equivalent to 5% of the gross proceeds of sales. So that's a different change in terminology.
So I'm looking for what is not, which is the exception, basically. So generally it's gross income that's charged the BPT,
Okay.
but which ones are the exceptions so besides banks, what is taxed that is not a tax on the gross income?
Okay, yeah, so the rate, I would have to go through each one of these to see which one says gross proceeds of sale, net income, gross income, generally most of these. Now, if we're talking about
Yeah, so
Lexby related.
Yeah, no, that's where my question is. So if you can go through that and give me a listing, yes.
So it's Lexby, the lines 2 through 8,
No,
is that?
no. I'm asking you, which is the exceptions to, because right now BPT is taxed on the gross income for the most part. So I'm asking you, which are the exceptions to that?
Okay, I guess wholesale, right? Wholesale is exempt from tax, so even if the rate is 5% generally for most of lines 1 through 13, wholesale, they don't pay tax because they're exempted, right? So that would be the whole entire gross income or gross proceeds of sale would be 0, 5%, because it's not taxed. The rates for selling of tangible personal property, like I said, I was reading it, it's taxed at 5% on the gross proceeds of sale. Hold on, let me get through this. Manufacturer or producer engaging in the business of selling his manufactured products at retail in Guam shall be required to make returns of the gross proceeds of such retail sales and pay the tax imposed by this chapter for the privilege of for the privilege of engaging in business of selling such products at retail in Guam. Moving on, provided that the manufacturer or producer, other than a manufacturer of alcoholic beverages, engaging in the business of selling his products to the manufacturers, wholesalers, or licensed retailers, or persons actually selling the products to the United States government, shall not be required to pay the tax. Tax on service business. Upon every person engaging or continuing within Guam in any service business or calling not otherwise specifically taxed under this section, there shall be a tax equivalent to 5% of the gross income. So services uses gross income, banks used net income, selling tangible personal property uses gross proceeds of sale. Moving on, I read professions earlier. It's taxed on gross income of such practice. Tax on contractors is 5% measured against the gross income of any contractor, provided that there shall be deducted from the gross income of the taxpayer so much thereof as has been included in the gross income earned from another taxpayer who is a contractor, as defined in 26-101B, which defines primary contractor. Then F is tax on banks. It's net income minus salaries, bonus, interest, rents, ordinary loans. She said no. You're asking
which
for the
ones-
exceptions that don't pay on gross income.
Correct.
Yeah. So we're going to have to go through all of this if you want all the dealing in foreign currency. Every person engaging or continuing within Guam in the business of purchasing and selling foreign money, there shall be a tax equivalent to 5% of the gross profit. See? So it changes. Of such business represented by the difference between the cost and the selling price of the foreign currency measured. Tax on other business. Upon every person engaging or continuing within Guam in any business, trade, activity, occupation, or calling not specifically included in any other provision of this article, there shall likewise be a tax equivalent to 5% of the gross income of such business. This shall apply to the gross income of the persons taxable under other provisions of this chapter, but which gross income is not defined from the exercise or privilege taxable thereunder. Insurers. Upon every person engaged or continuing within Guam in the business of insurer, there shall be a tax at the rate of 5% of the gross income received as premium. Gross income as premium for the writing of the insurance, less return premiums unless all commissions attributable to the sale and purchase of an insurance policy or policies of the insurer paid by said insurer to agents of the same, and 5% of any other gross income earned or derived on Guam. Tour agencies. So going back to insurers, there's also a calculation. So it's pretty much net, right? Minus all these other paid to other agents, or so that there may not be double taxation or the appearance thereof, for instance. So they all vary, and there's a few more to go. Tour agencies. Upon every person engaging or continuing within Guam on the business of a tour agency or travel agency where tourism-related services are furnished to consumers by independent vendors through arrangements by a travel agency or tour packager, and the gross income is divided between the provider of the service on the one hand and the travel agency or tour packager on the other hand, a tax equivalent to 5% shall be imposed on each person with respect to such person's respective portion of the proceeds and no more. Example, if I sell a package, I'm a travel agency for $5,000, but part of that was because Marie here is the tour operator that actually helped me sell it or is part of my package. She'll pay, if her package is only $2,000, she pays the 5%. I only pay the 5% on the 3. So there's no duplicating, or we pay our fair share of taxes of that package.
And that's gross income, right?
And it's gross sale, right, for the travel package. Let's get to that. Or the tour package. On the other hand, a tax equivalent to 5% shall be imposed on each person. So gross sale of our package or service, gross income, yeah.
Okay, so then having read through that, just to recap, what are the exceptions to paying BPT on gross income?
It just varies, either entity to entity, gross income, gross proceeds of sales versus net.
Right, so can you recap what you just read? As what, so we charge BPT on gross income for the most part, except which ones?
Banks, Prime pays 5% on gross income. Subcontractors don't pay. Professions pay on gross income. Banks pay on the net income. Tour industries, they actually pay 5%, but the shares are segregated of that
But
sale.
it's the gross sales.
Gross sales, yeah. On gross, not net. Did I mention professions is 5% of gross income? Rent, did I get to rent? Tax on services is also 5% of the gross income, correct? Retail. Where's the retail? Did I get to retail? Insurance is gross, 5% of gross income received as a premium, less, so there's a net calculation, less returned premiums, and less all commissions attributable to the sale and purchase of the insurance policy or policies of the insurer paid by said insurer to agents of the same. So maybe pretty similar to tour and travel agents' segregation of shares of the premium or the commissions or the sale of that insurance.
Okay,
Tax
so
on the-
insurance is kind of like the tour operators. It's still on gross.
But it's still on gross, just shared 5%.
Okay, appreciate that. So the other, it looks like the exception is the foreign currency. They kind of use the word gross profit, so that's really net. So, okay, thank you for going through that. I appreciate that. So again, I guess BPT is not equally treated amongst the different businesses. Okay, that's important to note. Thank you. Okay, going back to, I think it was a breakdown of the BPT, how much we're collecting at different tiers. And so I believe there was a handout that was given. And if you can maybe calculate, what would a 4.5 versus a 4%? So I know that there was a document that's provided, that response to Senator Terlahi. And so if you can kind of go through what would a 4% rollback look like? And if you look at the different tiers, let's say under the 2 million mark.
So yes, we did. We briefly heard this morning. Can I be heard? Okay, it just keeps switching on me. So based on what we gathered this morning with the budget bill change in language regarding the rollback percentage. So we did a quick calculation based on a 4% rollback and a 4.5% rollback. We only considered the grouping of 500,000 to the 2 million mark. Let me clarify. We're using right now, this was related to the Lexby exercise, calendar year 2023 versus the government's fiscal year reporting period. Anyway, it's a pretty close number between the fiscal year 23 and calendar year 23. Maybe off, but I'm just pointing it out that this is Lexby related data analysis. But just using it, I also did a fiscal year one, and I believe I sent it to her early July. But using this same grouping between the threshold of 500,000 to the 2 million, that would gross taxable amount of 869,586,991, and that taxable income for those thresholds at 4.5% is 39,131. 39,131,415 versus the 5% at 43,479,350, a difference of $4.347 million. If we look at
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Okay,
so
sorry.
you're saying, so the taxable income yielded at 4.5% is 39 million, and a 5% BPT would yield how much?
43,479,350.
43 million, roughly.
Right.
Okay. And so then a 4% would yield, what would be the tax?
It would be 34 million. Hold on. 34,783,480. 35 million. The 5% is compared the same 43,479 million. That would be an 8.695 difference.
So we're talking between 500 and 2 million? It seems a little off, no?
502 million? I'm
Wait,
not
so
sure.
are you calculating BPT for the whole gamut, or? So my question is,
No, it was just for that group, 500 to 2 million.
2 million, yeah.
The taxable amount is 869. Just say 870 million, okay? 870 million times 4.5% yields about 39 million or 40 million at 4.5.
seems off.
Am I reading that?
Doesn't make sense.
This is just for that grouping, the 500 to the 2 million. The total, the aggregate taxable amount is 869,586,991. You multiply that by the 4.5%, you get 39,131,415. At 5%, that 869,586,991, at 5% is 43,479,350. The difference between the two is 4,347,935.
Okay, and did you do for the whole, what would be the total if you're going all of the tiers?
Including the over 2 million. No, I didn't do that because that, yeah. Give me a sec, I'll do it.
Okay, thanks.
Excuse me, what threshold do you want me to start with or to include? The Dave Santos 50 all the way through?
Just everything now, if we're going to give.
Senator Perez, if you like, you can ask other panelists questions that you may have while she's working on her.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chair.
welcome.
Okay, so I just want to go back, if you can clarify. So I know that this question was asked before, I'm sorry, if you want to continue, yeah. This question was asked before regarding income tax refunds, so setting aside a certain portion. I know this budget has 25 million set aside with an estimate that there's going to be 143 million in tax refunds doled out in the year. I know there was a discussion in regards to that because in looking at the past 3 years, that's what it's been roughly with we had a peak during the pandemic, right, which was an anomaly, seen as an anomaly. But yet we've been setting aside around $165 million. And so that question was asked earlier. So the money's there, it's still there. Can anybody in the panel enlighten me where the money is placed if the money hasn't been spent? So we did the provisions for 20 million more than what was utilized for that fiscal year. Maybe Director Byrne, where would the money be put in, or which account?
It's a provision, Senator, not money. It's just, there's no money there. The money comes from paying out the refunds less what we get back from the federal government.
Okay, so we had a provision 20 million more than what was spended. So what happened to the money?
I'm not following your numbers. Where does the 20 million come from?
Okay, so let's go back. If you look at the income tax reports, let me just pull that up. Oh,
So isn't the provision just an allowance of how much we can spend?
Yeah,
Lester's letter. Oh.
I did. I just did.
I guess, yeah, if you look at the income tax refund report, it's at 143 million, 138 million, and so we would, in every budget, we put like more than that. I believe it's 160. So where does that go, or how is that accounted for?
Senator, that's the gross amount, not the net amount. The issue that I have with the provision in this budget bill is not the gross amount, with which I agree. It's that the net amount is understated because the tax refunds that we get from the federal government is overstated.
Okay, so we have a bonanza or a windfall from the reimbursement for EITC, correct?
Well, it's not really a windfall, it's just a reimbursement. You know, it's an amount they give us so that we can pay out the EITC portion of the tax refunds.
And so how much have we been getting on a consistent basis?
Roughly 58 million.
Per fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's not clear to me. It's still kind of fuzzy accounting for me. It's just not, it's not adding up in my mind as far as, I know appropriations is different from allocation, so those are two different things. And if we are allowing you or authorizing you up to 160 million, then where does that money go, is the question. And you're saying there is no money because it's an authorization.
It's an authorization to spend money on a tax refund, and in the financial statements, that is actually deducted from the tax revenues.
Okay, I think maybe if you can clarify, what are the different names of unspent money? So there's unappropriated money, right? There's appropriated but not spent. What are the other ways you can say money that's still out there?
Well, I don't think that that's quite the way. Maybe you look at it this way, it'll help you. When you're looking at the budget bill, it has a tax revenue amount, and deducted from that is the refund amount. So what it effectively does is reduce the tax revenues when you actually pay out a refund. So when you're looking at the CRER, right, there's a gross amount, and then there's a provision to reduce it to the net amount, because we account in the end for the net amount of tax revenues that's net of those refunds. That's why it's a provision. It's not unspent. It's accounted for in the tax revenue number.
Okay, and yet we've been yielding more, we've been collecting more than what's appropriated every year. Is that correct?
And you can see that the tax revenues increased as a result. In fact, in the budget bill, there's a subtotal of income taxes. And in this budget bill, it's 502 million after the provision. However you consider the provision to be calculated, the numbers follow the same pattern in each year's budget bill.
Okay, so, but we've been collecting more than what we appropriated in the past budget cycles.
And part of that is refunding less.
Okay. So, and when you were talking about how the new budget, the HR1, is going to give back more money, and then you were also advocating or proposing that there be a $12 million increase somewhere to account for increase, I guess.
In the calculation, there's child tax credit receipts of 64.5 million. What I advised yesterday was that currently we've received and used 47 million. So that number seems too high. So if you adjust that number, it would increase the provision because you're getting less money from the federal government. And I think it's just I guess, an error that the gross amount was reduced, but the federal recapture wasn't.
Okay. So in this case, there'll be more money for the government then, in the budget?
I think there's too much federal receipts assumed. So the refund amount is understated, and we will end up by paying out more, and that will reduce our tax
Okay,
revenues.
so we have less money. Okay,
Yes.
got it. But then there's another thing that's happening, right? You're expecting there's going to be more money coming back, more claims. Is that correct? I think 17 million is what you're mentioning. 10 million in corporate and 7 million in income tax refunds?
That's an assessment of the amount of tax we expect to forego under the new IRS tax code that's just been implemented.
So your suggestion would be to lower those expectations for the
It would be to consider that tax receipts might be adversely affected by 18 million or thereabouts because of the tax changes that have been implemented in the federal government, which flows through to us because we're a mirror system.
Okay, so then I know this budget, the executive budget was provided in January, right, before the HR was passed. So are you saying that we should lower that amount where it says withholding and or income tax? Those areas should be decreased?
That's our assessment of the amount of tax the lower amount of tax that we expect to receive.
Okay, so right now it says 315 million. So is that updated numbers, or should we lower that to the 10 million that you're expecting we will receive? Or I'm sorry, it's corporate and income tax.
Yeah.
So should we lower these numbers in the revenue section?
Well, you
Based on that.
should consider lowering them absent any other factors that might offset that.
So the 116 million should now be, so we're thinking corporate taxes, right?
Yes.
So the 116 million, if you were expecting 10 million less, then it should be brought down to 106 million?
106 million, but there might be other factors that you should consider that would offset that adjustment.
For instance, like what?
Well, I mean, if you're going to reduce BPT, in theory, that would increase corporate income.
And so that would increase the
That
corporate?
would increase it.
Okay. Okay, that's another thing we have to think about, right? And then depending on how much we lower, right? So has anybody made that estimate?
Of what?
So if we lower BPT, what would that affect? How would that affect the corporate taxes in addition to the Trump?
Well, in theory, there would be
Or the Congress
the
bill.
BPT that's contemplated in this bill is a 40 million reduction. in theory, that 40 million reduction would flow through to the taxpayers.
So then that would mean an increase in income tax?
That would increase their income, not their, you have to take account that tax is, corporate tax is about 20%. Right?
Yeah, so it would be great if that kind of analysis was done, so we know what we're dealing with, in the budget. I mean, this is the biggest part of the budget, is guesstimating what the revenues are. And
Yes.
if we have all of these things to consider, that would help us a lot to, be conscientious and, comfortable with what we're doing versus having to come back later and, fix up whatever we didn't consider. Is there any way that the administration can create those estimates, that analysis?
Respectfully, we got this at the same time, or roughly the same time you did on Friday afternoon.
But maybe OFB, is this something that you're able to do and willing to do for this body to estimate, do this analysis in regards to, if we're going to have a 10 million loss in corporate taxes, but then BPT is increased to whatever percent?
Senator, whatever projected losses we anticipate, we took that into consideration. We all, again, like I said, the way we calculated all these revenue categories was we take historical trends, we use that, we average it out, we take all economic conditions current, and hopefully in the future, we consider that in the formula. And at the end of the day, we sit down and conscientiously figure, like, okay, this is the best figure we can go with. Are we sure with it? 100%? No. Are we confident with it? To some degree, yes. But there's a lot of variables, a lot of factors that can happen between today, as we debate this bill, and tomorrow, and 12 months from now. And that's the gamble. We don't know, but we can only do our best knowing the information we have today.
Senator, thank you. That's your time. This time I will recognize
Sorry,
Senator
one
Tina
of my
Muñoz-Barnes.
questions still need to be answered. Yeah, they're working on it.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go to Senator Tina, and then as soon as they have it, I'll just come back for your answer. Senator Barnes, you have it already? Oh, if you're ready, yeah, go ahead and answer the question. Thank you.
Taxable income from 50,000 gross income to 2 million is 1,355,973,584. 5% of that is about 68 million. 4% of that is 54 million. 67,798,679 is at 5%. 54,238,943 is at 4%. The difference of that is 13,559,736. That's for the thresholds of 50 to 2 million. The tax difference from 5 to 4 is 13,559, again, including the greater than 2 million. We did it separately. So the taxable income adding to the 1,355,000, we're adding the greater than 2 million taxable income of 6,661,000, so on and so forth. It equates to 8,017,958,092 in taxable income. That at 5% is $400 million, 897,905. At 4%, that's 320 million, a difference of 80 million, 179.
Sorry, I also asked for the 4.5%.
Okay, 4.5%. Again, the 50 to 2 million threshold, taxable income is 1.4 billion. At 5%, that'll be 67.798 million. At 4.5%, that's 61,018,811, a difference of $6.8 million roughly for that threshold. Adding the greater than 2 million taxable income, at 5% is still the 400,897,905. At 4.5% is 360,808 for 114 million. Between the 4 and 4.5, there is a difference of $40 million.
If we can get that in writing, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. This time we'll go to Ranking Member, Senator Tina Rose Winya-Barnes. You may proceed.
Mr. Chair, thank you for giving me the opportunity and to ask some of the questions. And I want to thank the panel members for being here this afternoon, and also OFB for their work on this proposed Bill 44-38 as substituted. I'll be as direct as possible. So the first couple of questions I'll ask to Mr. Ed Byrne. One, will the cost of the retirement contributions paid by the government go up, down, or stay the same for the next fiscal year?
There was a slight, for the retirement fund, there was a slight decrease.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
For the retirement fund, there was a slight decrease.
For the retirement fund, it will be a decrease?
Yes.
And do you know the number to that?
No.
Can you get that for us,
Yes, ma'am.
please?
34.8% down to 33.85%.
Say that one more time, Lester. I'm so sorry, sir.
34.8% to 33.85%.
Okay. Number two, will the share of the medical and dental insurance paid by the government go up, down, or stay the same for the next fiscal year? Medical and dental insurance. You can break it up for both or give me a total.
The total cost of the total policy, if you like, is expected to go down by about 1.2%. That will impact agencies unevenly because there's different mixes of employees in each agency, and that also includes the component unit agencies that participate in the plan as well.
So the average is going down by 1.2%.
1.2%, yes.
Does that mean if an agency gets a status quo budget, meaning the same amount next year as they got this year for 2025, will they be able to pay all their expenses, including the new amounts for retirement and insurance costs?
I think that depends on their staffing pattern.
That depends on their what?
Staffing pattern. In theory, there are several things that impact employment costs. Obviously, one is we were talking about earlier, which is increments that employees have earned as a result of service, and that might be in danger if an agency has a standstill budget because the wages that they pay to their employees is not standstill. Offsetting that will be these reductions in benefits, but how much relates to each agency is not clear because it depends on their staffing pattern. But a rough calculation is, an increment is roughly 3.5%, whereas these reductions are 2.2%. So it looks like some part of their employment costs will be unfunded if they're fully staffed.
Thank you. I guess then, based on that, BBMR, Mr. Carlson, Lester, do you concur with Mr. Byrne on his analysis of these budgetary obligations?
Yes, I'll take the staffing pattern that he mentioned one step, further. We did try our level-headed best to include increments in the staffing pattern. So if you go through a staffing pattern for any one particular employee, you'll see the current salary, the anticipated increment due, and all of that tallies up to the personnel costs. And as Mr. Burns said, there may be an impact if full employment is from October 1st to September 30th. If people leave, retire, otherwise, are not with the agency, then, you've got vacancies, and then some of these other personnel costs can certainly be made up. But as Mr. Guerrero mentioned, whatever it is that we're looking for with respect to department operational costs, that also is a variable. So this body has done a good job in the last 4 years, 5 years, in being able to appropriate for operational requirements. And what I see so far, it looks like, absent the revenue stuff, the appropriations to the agencies far and away are okay. I mean, we pointed out a few, but there's a whole lot more that are okay.
Okay. So, thank you for that, Lester. The next question I will direct to DRT or Steph. Please share with the body how the big Trump spending bill affects the taxes we will collect and the tax refunds that will be paid out in the next fiscal year.
Hi, Senator. Okay, so we concentrated on several areas, and as Director Byrne mentioned, we are looking at nearly $8 million. This is for individual returns. So there are several sections in the One Big Beautiful Bill that we concentrated on. One was an increase in the standard deduction, and that is expected to impact us to the tune of $3.3 million. There is also an increase in the senior deduction to the tune of $2.5 million. We took into account the sections also on no tax on tips, and just to, kind of, give you, or to put the caveat out there, we did do the calculation based on certain assumptions. That one is expected to, so there are an estimated 2,090 individuals employed as bartenders, hairdressers, hairstylists, cosmetologists, waiters, waitresses, hosts, and hostesses at restaurants, lounges, and coffee shops. And that they collectively represent about 3.36% of the total employment on Guam. Additionally, there are approximately 2,730 individuals employed as restaurant or short order cooks, food preparation workers, dishwashers and maids, and housekeeping cleaners, and that they represent collectively 4.39% of the total employment on Guam. So we did an estimate on that, and the range of impact to the government of Guam general fund revenues is approximately $677,180. The other sections that we took a look at also was the no tax on overtime. The total number of private sector employees estimated to work overtime is 19,380. And the overtime compensation based on the average hourly workings multiplied by the average hours paid in excess of 40 hours per week is approximately 56.06 million. For the government of Guam, there was an estimated 23.7 million in estimated overtime compensation for approximately 2,105 employees. So that total fiscal impact is at $1.142005 million. The final thing that we took into consideration was the no tax on car loan interest. In 2023, there were approximately 10,409 new vehicle registrations in Guam. More than 80% of new car purchases are financed. So utilizing this data, approximately 2,082 new vehicles are financed and may be considered eligible. Since the average car loan is approximately $41,720, you take that at an interest rate of about 6.73%, and with the loan term being 5 to 6 years, this equates to approximately $112 to $125 per month, or approximately $1,344 to $1,500 per year in interest payments. Utilizing these assumptions, the impact to the government of Guam general fund revenues is approximately $93,690. So all the sections that I mentioned, again, that is with regard to individuals, and that's about 7.8, nearly $8 million that Director Byrne mentioned earlier.
Do you have that in writing so that we can get a copy of that? So just if that's okay?
We can get it to you.
Can we?
What I have is a draft, yeah, with
Okay.
notes.
So that would, because my next question was how much do you estimate Guam our government will lose in the individual corporate and withholding tax revenue as a result of the Trump spending law? And then how much in the tax refunds will we pay out? So I wanted in the individuals and corporations as a result of the new Trump spending law, so I want it separated. So if you can give us a breakdown on that.
I don't have the withholding with me right now, but with regard to what I just mentioned,
Yeah.
these are going to actually, it's going to go back to the taxpayers. So, that's the decrease.
Okay. Then to you, Steph, if I can, how much in the lost federal grants will need to be replaced with the local dollars, and what agencies are most effective? And the reason why I'm asking is I know with this, a lot of the agencies who have grants in their agencies and pay a portion or a formula that in order to get the grant, how much would have to be replaced with the cuts or with the takeaways, and how much would we have to use in local dollars to average it out, to bring it up to par to where it's at today? And what agencies are mostly affected?
Okay, Senator, as I stated earlier with some prior questions, we're still doing that. We're still confirming with the agencies, and we should be able to get that to you before Friday. We're hoping to get it by tomorrow, but if we can't, we'll definitely have it by Friday. We just want to make sure we give fair opportunity to our federal partners to respond to our request that we sent out Friday. Remember, today is their Monday. So they would have to start, really looking back and saying, okay, definitely this is what you need to cover. So what we're really worried about is people who are being zeroed out. That's what we're really worried about. The federal local match, that's already in the federal receipts that we've submitted with the January submission, the federal inventory, and showing the local match versus the federal match. We have not received any real information that those are being affected for this fiscal year. So what we have as of January is still current, but we are double checking that as well. So we'll provide that information. We're double checking, triple checking, making sure some of our, like I said, some of our competitive grants that are, you have to make a decision, do you want to fund those things that are competitive, which are not, general services of the government. That's really, we need to be concerned about things that are functional operations.
And just based on that, based on the working with each agency closely, is there any one agency at this time that is gravely affected? I'll bring one agency up, like PBS or.
Most definitely PBS.
And anybody to that nature, other that will have those main concerns,
It's PBS and Guam EPA.
and Guam EPA.
Definitely.
And any other agency?
We're confirming with BSP as to the actual timelines on their grants, but we do know that those grants are running out and they have not been included in FY26 federal budget. So, and also historic preservation, we know that they were zeroed out for FY26. We're trying to confirm with them whether their prior year grant cycles will cover them through this fiscal year. But we do know that the FY26 budget that passed, HR 1, zeroed out those provisions for historic preservation and some other grants as well. So we're confirming those numbers so that we give you a number as to what that zeroing out means.
And what local dollars may be needed
Yes,
to
that
replace
way
that?
if we give you the number of what it is on the federal side that was covering 100%, that would be what we would suggest is the local, would be the local replacement.
And we will get all that before Friday?
Before Friday, yes, ma'am.
If sooner, if the information...
As soon as I can get it, but definitely by Friday.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody on the panel. And, you know, Mr. Chair, I want to say thank you. And, you know, I also want to share that I will always support debate in this body, and I want to register my concern that this bill may not accurately reflect our tax collections, our tax refund obligations, and might short our employees, you know, the government's share of retirement and insurance. And just want to make sure that all of these issues are brought up to par, and if there's anything, further information that can be provided to us so that we can be able to ensure the adequacies are given to our government employees. You know, it's no fault of the government, but based on that big, beautiful, you know, Trump spending bill, I think it's important that we have to give the realization that it's not anybody's fault, but what has been turned our way. You know, the cards are not in our favor right now. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask those questions. I await the answers, and hopefully I can have several amendments on the floor before the closing when we get to the third round. I did also have a concern, but maybe on the second round I'll ask it, regarding public defenders PAP and the funding source there, because it was this body who removed, who took away from the judiciary to bring it into the Public Defender Service Corporation, and I wanted to make sure that that was included. So a bookmark on that as far as revenues needed. Okay?
Cedars Mossy, Ranking
Thank you, Mr.
Member
Chair.
Tina Munoz-Barnes. So I will tell you, and when we get there, that was a request of the judiciary when they came to us on our pre-budget meeting, and there's a reason for that. The main reason is through their research and through advisement, there is a conflict of interest with the judiciary doing
Right.
that pass-through, given the fact that alternate public defender, and when they have to go outside of that, they're conflicted because of the fact that those individuals are coming before them. And so we'll give a full explanation on that, and we'll deal with that when we get there.
Point of information, Mr. Chair, as the Oversight Chair on Judiciary, what you just mentioned is not true to form. The Sixth Amendment that provided the information or the structure of the change of the Public Defender's Office said no such thing.
So
By law,
you can take it up with the Chief Justice. He represented
well,
that to us.
I'll take it up here because you're making some accusations, and that's not true.
You're stating that you don't believe what the Chief Justice said.
I'm just making it for the record,
you're
as
out
the
of order at
Oversight
this
Chair.
point. Senator Joe Shimizu-Augustine,
Point
you're
of
recognized.
information, Mr. Chair. Just some of these analysis that we're asking for, I don't think we can wait until Friday, because if you're moving on in these chapters, we need to have them for Chapter 1. So if I could just implore the panel, these analysis that you're going to put in writing for us, we really need them today, right away, right now, if possible.
That's up to their ability to do it, but thank you for the point of information. Senator Joe Shimizu-Augustine, you're recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to assume, Mr. Chairman, that the panel has a copy of the Budget Act, right?
I sure would hope so, sir.
Okay, so going back just a little bit with my colleague that asked questions about the income tax, if DRT can go ahead and turn to page 8, and you know, as everybody's saying numbers, I like to write them in. So if you say we're short here, tell me where we're short so I can write it in so that if I'm going to introduce an amendment, I know where to introduce it. Not just assume somebody said it and it's going to be good as gold. So back to DRT. On page 8, you got the provisions for tax refunds. The OFB kicked out. And you know, I support the OFB. We worked together for 6 years. We got a good relationship. But going to the provisions for tax refunds, it's identified as 143 versus 175 for the previous years. But I've heard Mr. Byrne and DRT mentioning that because of the impact of the Trump Act, it's going to change. So I'm assuming the earned income tax credit is going to change from 53 to something else? Was there a number given or no? No? Mr. Byrne, anyone on that on the executive side can answer it? Is there any change on the information that's on the Budget Act? On page 8, the top part. Provisions for tax refunds. Because everybody's been talking about it's 20 million, it's 25 million being reduced, okay? I'm looking at the document.
Yes, our suggestion on that, or our recommendation, is that you reduce the child tax credit amount by 12 million.
So reduce it from 64 to what? What's the exact amount?
By 12, well, I've just estimated 12 million, so that would be 52.
Okay. And on the earned income tax credit, leave alone 53?
I didn't propose any change. It's just 12 million to the CTC.
Reduce it by 12, and the budget reflects from 143 down to 25, and it was mentioned earlier that no, we should be higher than 143 because of what? I mean, I heard all the breaks everybody's going to get. So what should the amount be then if it's not 143?
No, 143 was fine by us. It's just reduce the child tax credit by 12 million. That increases the provision by 12 million.
When you lose revenue from folks that don't get taxed for tips, overtime, and all these other stuff that was mentioned earlier, your revenue base goes down. That means when folks are going to file their taxes, their refund will go up. So what is the amount that you're anticipating it might have? That's what I want to know, because I've heard all these comments about numbers. You guys got to give us some numbers now, because when you say you're good with 143, it's obvious you're not good with 143. Because maybe, Steffi, you can answer that. I think one was for tips. The other one was overtime. What else? What else was it? There's 4 or 5 items were identified. That means the refund's got to go up.
Either the refund will go up or the income will go down. And it doesn't really matter where you reflect it. One or other is going to reduce the net tax revenues.
Okay, the net tax revenue. So in other words, the 143, you're good, it's good.
You know, it's,
be careful of your answer, okay?
It's as best a guess as we can do.
So you're not saying we should increase it because of the impact of President Trump's bill?
You can either increase the refund or decrease the income, and it amounts to the same thing.
Repeat that one more time. You can increase it or decrease
either
it? Oh yeah, I'm going to get to that one next.
Okay, so there is 2 parts to the tax.
Yes.
One is the individual, which we say, which we believe is the impact is 8 million.
Okay.
And the corporate tax, the impact we believe is 10 million.
10 million.
Yes.
That comes up to 18.
18.
Okay. So when you say reduce the child tax credit by 12, you're still short 6.
No, that's a separate thing. That's a separate calculation.
Ed, I know where you're coming from, but I'm just trying to do the math. At the end of the day, things got to add up so that when you're going to have to do the refunds, you don't make the statement later on in the year by saying that you weren't given the authorization to do the refund beyond 143, when you had a chance here to say you need more authorization than 143. That's what I'm getting at. And I'm hearing that you're saying you don't need.
To my mind, it's a good assessment, but
Okay, I'm good.
But the impact should be reflected in lower tax receipts.
At the end of the day, Ed, when you're doing refunds, if we hear at any time next year that you don't have the authorization to pay a refund beyond 143 million, this is recorded. I'm just going to say, Steph, you want to comment so we can get clarity to this? I'm good. I can see where it's come from, but I just want to make sure it's clear. Because I was going to amend to increase it. But if you're saying you don't need to, then I'm good with it.
Okay, so the beer drinker is going to talk.
All right.
What we said was this. We said that we believe that the provision for income tax refunds, the liability on us because of the Trump tax is $18 million in additional tax refunds, which I believe is captured in the refund payment that was reduced down to $25 million.
Right.
So the top number of 143, I was under the impression that we could mitigate the difference by going by another 12 million, which we talked about earlier, to 155.
Okay, that's
So
the
that
number I'm
means,
looking
that
for.
means taking the 25 and increasing it to 37. And that's my second beer, so I think my logic makes sense.
Okay, well, that's the number I was looking for. Tell me you need the authorization of 155 so that you can make sure you can pay out free funds up to 155. If you don't use it, you don't use it. It's not a major loss. It's not like we need to go and amend the budget to give you more money. The next question I have is that on the, all of you can answer this. Rainy day fund, 18 million. Did we meet the law already that we need to stop it? Or is it just, has been a recommendation to your office to stop the rainy day fund?
As we mentioned yesterday, Senator, we don't believe that we hit the cap. Mr. Byrne read the statute, and he's of the opinion that you used 23, 24, and 25. OFB used 22, 23, and 24. And regardless of which methodology that you employ to get to what is the cap, one is either 96 and the other one I believe is 88. We haven't got that much money, no matter which way you cut the cookie. We didn't.
Okay.
So suspending it doesn't look like it's in line with the statute.
Right. And I wanted Mr. Guerrero to answer that. And the reason why is because when we started together at OFB, when I was appropriation, we pushed to enforce the law to start the rainy day fund. We succeeded in that. And I don't want us to say, let's stop it because we met it and we didn't meet it. Unless it was just a recommendation by someone to your office, Steve, and I know you better than that, but just give me your honest opinion. Do we really need to stop it? Do you honestly feel we met the amount we need to meet by law?
Senator, based on my calculation, and as I explained it yesterday, the version of how we came up with our formulas are different, simply because of the fiscal years. Using the data that I'm using, following the law verbatim, I feel that we have met the cap. Again, following the law verbatim and the information I have. Now, there's three things that is throwing a mix into this whole thing. Is one, if you look at the FY23 audit, it shows a rainy day balance of 44 million. When we met with the governor, I believe on the 3rd, they were quoted as the balance as 65 million. Yesterday, that figure went down to 55. So I can give you different spreadsheets, all on the same numbers. And of course, it's going to vary Whether or not it hit the cap of 1 just depends what base you use. But for the purposes of mine, making the recommendations to suspend it simply because I feel using our method, we met the cap, yes, it was my recommendation.
Okay, that sounds good. Mix of numbers. My next question is, referring to all the other agencies, either side can answer it. Do you believe the organic growth of every agency's budget covered? In other words, if you gave DOE 266 million, I know last year was 263, or this year's 263 because of the increase. Does the 266 cover the organic growth for anything of that agency? And if you're going to say it does, how much is that valued at? Because then the 266 is minus the organic growth, it tells you what you're giving DOE. That's making it very clear. That number should be easy. Either one can answer.
Senator, I'll go ahead and answer the question. I prepared the budget. I set the levels in the bill for each department and agency. Excuse me. I can confidently say that when we speak about organic growth basically is fixed costs at any given time, plus whatever costs we need to cover for the next fiscal year, which is considered fixed costs for the next year. Those are what we call organic growth. Sometimes we kind of throw in like, well, when the power goes up, we need to budget a little bit more for power. Sure, I've been told that the power is going to go down. The power cost is going down. So there's certain things that we can consider in organic growth, but for the purposes of the budget itself, two things come to mind on organic growth. One is the cost of retirement, which over the last so many years have been creeping up every year. Okay. The other one is annual increments. Not every employee in the government of Guam gets an increment every year. It just depends where you are in the ladder. But for those two particular fixed costs, we have budgeted that in the bill for every department and agency. It is covered.
Okay, now, being very specific now for DOE, so what is their true budget minus the organic growth? Because then that's going to tell me exactly what DOE is getting. So
I can
DOE
tell you
plan
this, Senator, for now, the average increments for DOE roughly is about $750,000 per year. We've given them a little bit more, I believe. If we do not include the supplemental, I believe the amount that we're giving for DOE over the FY25 budget is 10 mil. Now, Senators, let me again explain this. When we talk about ceilings, we talk about status quo budgets. Status quo budgets are, in this case for FY25, is whatever was authorized in the budget bill. All the supplementals that come after that needs to be vetted and determine whether or not that becomes now part of the baseline, because that was never in the intent of supplementals in the past. It was only to help the agencies and the departments cover costs for that fiscal year. You can talk about prior year obligations, you can talk about everything else under the sun, but it wasn't intended to be built into the bottom line of the agency. This year we had several departments that grew in the millions because of the supplementals. Now, we need to make the conscientious decision. Well, I did. Do we use those supplemental amounts as the baseline for FY26? When we looked at the supplemental needs, we found that most of them are for operations. So, conscientiously, I embedded it in. I included them because it would be remiss of me not to know that, the mayor's council needed 5.8 million just to maintain their operation. If I was to give them back, instead of giving them the 18, give them back to 12, they're going to say, what the heck? Same thing with DOE. But there's some agencies that we give like 20 million, 10 million. Does that become now the bottom line of the agencies going forward?
Point of information, Mr. Chair. I think the point is that we underfunded GDOE so much in the budget that the supplemental appropriation of the additional 10 million still barely kept their head above water. And so just to my good colleague from GIGO, ask GDOE. They don't support this budget in this bill. They say it's a non-starter. Those are the facts.
Thank you for the point of information. We believe we adequately funded them. Please continue, Mr.
All right.
Augustine. Senator.
And I'm happy we have Tina here from GIDA. You know, as they talked earlier about the 35 million for the hospital, the 5 million for DOC, none of the money was ever put into the budget. I know that. My question is going to be to Tina, because you're now the acting director. Has any of those agencies come to you so that it can cause you to go to the bond and it can cause the budget to include their 5 or their 35 million so they can start up instead of talking about building a new DOC or building a new GMH, but they haven't even knocked at your door and got you to go to the bond market?
Hi, thank you, Senator. And my apologies, I wasn't here this morning. I had scheduled appointments I couldn't get out of. I'm really sorry. But Senator, we have been in discussion. We have been preparing for those projects. The one we've been most urgently preparing for is, of course, the Simon Sanchez. It's been a project that's been out there since 2013. And we've mentioned it. We've gone through this cycle a number of times, and we feel, although I'm not part of the evaluation that's ongoing and the negotiations ongoing, we feel that we're very close, but we've all come to the understanding that today's inflation rate, especially on Guam, has skyrocketed. And even though the A&E studies that when we first came to you said that inflation rates were included at about 134 million, it's actually gone beyond that. The cost for construction has gone beyond that. And I think that's why we've been looking at options to finance the school that the community of Simon Sanchez has requested for on the final A&E. And part of that was with normal financings, when we're building a building such as Simon Sanchez, we include 2 years of interest payments as part of the borrowing, so it doesn't come out of our pocket till we actually move in. In this case, the request is to contribute that 2 years interest payment today to help add to the project fund, because the project cost has gone up as much as that. Without it, we may lose classrooms, we may lose certain parts of the school, and again, another, being there from the very beginning, it's another disservice to that community. And so that's the one we're really hoping can be accomplished in this fiscal 26 budget. We've also been working with Department of Corrections on their project, and we've gone back and forth, and we've had working session meetings as well of trying to increase their appropriation of $5 million under 3657, but we've always told DOC it's a very tight project or tight funding source. And so they've said, okay, they've re-looked at the numbers, and based on a $5 million appropriation, they will be able to build some cells that can really help relieve the overcrowding.
Okay, Tina, since you mentioned the trying to offset, you're talking about $16 million or more?
For the Simon Sanchez pre-construction costs of $16.3 million.
Okay, well, since they mentioned that they took away 18, I guess 16 is available. I just wanted to hear that. And I'm from GIGO. I've been fighting for Simon Sanchez since 2006. And when they close,
Yeah.
that was painful. And I'm still trying to convince DOE, go and build a temporary building, bring them closer to the school, see the construction going on. But okay. Either one can answer this on the panel. Are there any provisions for emergency funds or reserves in this budget? Since we don't have any, you got rid of the emergency, the rainy day fund. Is there any allocation somewhere in the budget that says, in case of emergency, you can pull this, other than the governor saying, I had declared emergency, and I can use 250,000? Is there anything at all? Is there anything here, since there's no rainy day fund, other than what's already in the bank? Just curious.
Senator, if I could add, as it relates to the rainy day fund, on the bond rating agencies, they do look at the rainy day fund, and part of the reason why we've had our upgrade from Moody's is because we were able to fund the rainy day. They do read our policies. They do ask us what level are we at today and where should we be. And they watch us carefully on any drawdowns, whether it's during an emergency or during a non-emergency. Any drawdowns are being observed. And again, what they want to see is that we put in place a fiscal policy and we follow that policy. And so deviations from the policy will start leading to questions as to how serious we are about funding a rainy day fund. And as was seen with the pandemic, the pressure on states having an adequate funding level in their rainy day fund is very important in their analysis now.
Okay, so keep the rainy day fund in, and I'll look somewhere else for the 16 minutes for Simon Sanchez then. Thank you. The other question I have is, but you know what? Too close for time. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'll wait for the second round.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Chair. And so we'll take a dinner break right now at 5:30. We'll be back here at 7 o'clock. Jesus Masi.